What up? What up? Looks like we are live, everybody. Welcome on in. Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. My friends call me Sleuth. Today we will be looking into the double homicide of Abby and Libby out of Delphi, Indiana today. We are going to open up the phone lines. So if anybody wants to call in, feel free. I'll post that now. All righty. The link is pinned at the top there of the chat. that invitation is extended to anybody, whether you hold on. Okay. Well, we all know that the line has been drawn in the sand, right? Some people don't know what good is. Some people don't know what bad is. Some people don't know what evil is. Everything seems to be being flipped on its head. I'm not confused at all. Not one bit. See who we got in the house. It's like no matter how slow I make the chat, it's still unmanageable. What's up, Frank? Boston, CJK, Christine, Big Bird, my guy Redfoot. What's up? Heather, how are you? What's going on, Don? Wish I could participate, but replay crew it will be. No worries. Welcome in, Doris, Connie Hill, V. Marie. What up? Karen, how are you? Beth, good to see you. Melissa, Olivia, Lynn, how are you? Phil, Ziggy, what up? Rain Dancer, how are you? Cindy Lou, good afternoon. Willow. Yeah, my schedule is wide open for the next 3 hours. Who knows what we'll get into? What's up, Bobby, Horito, Miss Thang, Moonshadow, what up? Taco, good to see you. Candace, how are you? Shadowbox, good to see you. What's up, Wanda? My guy Shane D. My guy Brett. Dash, what's up? Welcome back to the Discord. Yeah, and if you're inactive in the Discord, just expect probably like every 2 months you might get booted out of there. Just send me an email like Dash did, and we'll get you back in there. What's up, Patricia? Jody. One more fall. How you doing? True crime housewife. What's going on, Tech Death? Choppa, get to the choppa. What's up, Deb? How are you doing? Hope all is well. Julianne, how are you? Nerdy Cat, what's up? Good to see you, Jerry. Yeah, no problem, Dash. All right, where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with Judge Gall denying the Franks? Basically denying everything. People who support Richard Allen, that's good. I'm glad that they do support him. But it is a little bit strange that they say that they think he's innocent. Why would you think he's innocent? You're not compelled by any of the evidence at all? You think it's just a pure fabrication? I mean, in my mind, he could be innocent. There's a small chance that he could be innocent. So I figured on the flip side of that coin, the folks who are trying to support him would say, well, there's a small chance that he's guilty. Now, that small chance means that he could have killed Abby and Libby. And according to experts, if he did that, he may have other victims. You know, it's very rare to have somebody at his age, around 45, commit a double homicide like this. Yeah, that sounds good. What's up, Silos? Shadowbox says, I kind of like to talk about the garage. Just heard Ruckus say something that made me. I don't know anything about the garage, so maybe you guys can enlighten me on that. I know that there's talk of a garage and there's a motorcycle cover. I can't put it together. Maybe you guys can help me on that. But yeah, that question comes up a lot in the Discord, in the members only Discord. Like, what's all this information about the garage? Well, I didn't hear anybody talking about the garage until the captain made a video, and then Ruckus is talking about a motorcycle cover. I don't know how the two coincide. Honestly, I don't. I know the Weber property was searched multiple times. I know that the property owners were snowbirds staying in Arizona at the time, and met with the local FBI agent down here in Arizona. I believe they even met him at a McDonald's and said, hey, this is what's going on. Can we have permission to search your property? They said, yeah, go right ahead. So on the 14th, they begin searching the property, and I believe Brad Weber comes home from work around 4-ish, and they took him in for questioning. I think they took DNA, polygraph, interview, multiple interviews, multiple search warrants. They took a lot of clothing from the home, and maybe part of that was searching the garage. Not quite sure. Never heard anybody mention the word garage until the captain made a video about it. Shadowbox says, he said the girl's blood was found in there, if I heard that right. Not sure how he would know that. But if so, that's pretty damning. I have no information on that, Shadow. Said the girl's blood was found in there, if I heard that right. And like I said, if anybody wants to clear it up, the phone lines are wide open. You can put it in the chat. We're going to hang out for a while today. I'm not in a rush. I have nothing on the agenda other than talking with you folks today. Nothing for me to tell. You know, we hear about shacks, garages, sheds. CJK says, I believe he is guilty and I don't know all of the evidence. Yeah, I do believe he is the guy on the bridge. whatever that means. So we know he's a kidnapper. Well, I know he's a kidnapper. I wouldn't say no. I'm pretty sure. I'm supporting the prosecution. I'm supporting the process right now. My stance is that he could be responsible for one of the most horrible crimes in Indiana history. I mean, this thing has changed the trajectory of my life. I have a freaking YouTube channel. I never would have thought that would ever happen. That was never in my future. And I also know the different stages of looking into a case. And if you can't evolve, you get stuck. And that's where these conspiracy folks are. Everything they look at is on the surface. They say, okay, let me build a story with what I have right here in front of me. That's not where the answers are. At least not always. Deb says, I talked about the garage a couple months ago on Sunny and Aspen's channel. Okay. What'd you guys say? What's going on? Frederica says, I think he's a serial killer. Well, I know if he gets convicted for these two murders of Abby and Libby, I'm definitely going to do my best to look into the Jordan Sofer case and see if he has anything to do with that. Man, the connections that we're finding right now are huge. But they're only huge if they can find a certain connection to Richard Allen. So we're not ready to talk about that stuff yet. That's one of the things we learn over time as we evolve with this channel is you have to have good vetting. The Supreme Court or Superior Court overrides that motion. Yeah, I don't think the Supreme Court's going to hear anything unless they see something wrong with the decision. I think with this last issue, they stated structural. So basically, that means go ahead and fix it structurally, and then you can go ahead and make that same decision. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Rosie and Baldwin booted out. Because we all know it's up to Richard Allen. It's his defense, That's just his team. You're not going to have two hotshot lawyers come in and force their client to do something that he doesn't want to do. Things may have been hidden in the garage. Blood may have been found in the garage. Says who? According to what? Just show me the piece of paper where you're getting this information. I'm getting so sick of these rumors. It's literally it's annoying at this point. Looks like we got somebody calling in, the Unsolved. Let's welcome the Unsolved. Looks like we got somebody calling in, the Unsolved.
Hey, I'm trying to make sure I don't have an echo. Can you hear me?
You do have an echo, but I can hear you just fine.
Hey, I'm trying to make sure I don't have an echo. Can you hear me? I wonder if I should put headphones on.
Echo, but I can hear you. You're gonna have to get rid of that echo, or turn the volume completely down.
You do have an echo, but I can hear you.
You're gonna have to.
Okay.
Echo, or turn the volume completely down.
You do have an echo.
You're gonna have to.
Okay.
Echo, or turn the. So that helped a lot right there.
All right, how about now?
So that helped a lot right there. No, I still hear it.
Great.
Take your time. Don't even worry about it. Get it all situated, and then we'll get going. Take your time. Don't even worry about it. Get it all situated. Olivia says the Weber's garage. Yeah, I figured it was the Weber's garage, and they searched that really good. I mean, on day 14.
Okay, let's see here.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah, that's much better. I don't hear any echo now. I wonder if it was because I had it on my TV also.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. What's going on?
I'm just waiting for my car to get fixed. I got a service engine light, and it's some like airflow related thing that they're trying to troubleshoot. So, yay.
Yeah, that's always fun. You want to talk about a headache whenever that light pops on. Mine usually pops on because of the damn gas cap.
Yeah, if that's not on all the way, or if you try and fill your gas tank up, and I don't know. I'm not. The funny thing is, my brother's a car mechanic, but like he gets sick of fixing my car for cheap for me. I can't blame him. It's no
Yeah.
fun.
The best I can do is swap out the alternator and all of the brakes. And one time I switched out some shocks. But as far as tinkering on that motor and that kind of stuff, hell no. Not built for that.
Um, the thing that I wanted to talk about is, you know, there's all these people who say they're sure Richard Allen is innocent, and I get it every single day. People get really, really angry at me on my page, in the comments, and every single time, even if I'm polite about it, I ask any one of them, "How are you certain of this?" To this day, I haven't found one person that can give me a logical explanation as to why that unspent round is there. They can't explain that away.
Well, the argument is that he's goes to the trails often. So who's to say he didn't leave it there at another time?
But I
Which is
mean,
preposterous.
considering how big the property is, yeah. And
The
the fact,
odds are ridiculous.
yeah, they are.
I mean, it's also likely that Bigfoot witnessed um, BG out there too. There's a chance that happened.
Well, it bothers me because, you know, we're living in a time where people are just so neck deep in conspiracy theories. And you kind of talked about at the beginning of your show, just, you know, kind of let's come back to reality as a society. Like, what's going on? Why does everybody just want to believe things that are so nonsensical or so unlikely over what's more likely to be true?
Well, it's not that they think he's innocent; it's that they think somebody else is 100% guilty. So if this other person is guilty, it cannot be Richard Allen
Yeah, and
with the Ron Logan stuff.
helps that, you know, you have documentaries out there like Making a Murderer, and you know all kinds of other things. It just we're
Paradise Lost, West Memphis 3.
and yeah, and bombarded, and it's like even the West Memphis Three. When I study that case, it just seems to me that that there's more evidence still that the West Memphis Three are guilty than innocent. I don't know. I guess my point is, it bothers me that these same people who think these things and espouse these theories and thoughts are all people who are going to be on juries potentially someday.
Well, I said it from the beginning. I don't think that I should have ever, sat on a jury if when it comes to this case. I would have told them straight up, like, I have a biased opinion. But these folks, they don't care about anything. Their only agenda is to push evil. That's it. Whatever evil is doing, that's what they're working to help. They don't need to have a reason. They don't need to have a rhyme. Their motivation is purely like a mob mentality to push that energy. That's it. That's all they're pushing. That's why they blame the family without proof. Now, if you came out and you showed me some solid evidence that one of the family members was involved, I'm going to stand right there with you and
Certainly,
scream that from the top
I
of my
beg
lungs.
people. I said, please, you know, don't just show me that. If you think you have evidence, show it to the police too.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody ever does because it's just all speculation.
Well, they're grabbing all these items from the surface and they're trying to tell a story that's almost for the layman, really. Like anybody that's not willing to take a little bit of extra time to look into the case, these are the same folks that are going to eat that shit up, right? They're just lazy sleuths, and that's the audience that they appeal to, are folks that don't really care. They're just looking for a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of conspiracy, and kind of fit into what they already thought, right? Oh man, I thought that Kelsey was really strange. So when
And
you
you
hear
know,
some nut job say, "Oh well, Kelsey's part of this," they're like, "Yeah, I thought that from the beginning."
I was guilty of that in the very beginning when I
Me
first
too.
started studying this case. And in fact, I actually had Kelsey contact me on here, like through a message, because I made a video that showed the day after the murders, Mike Patty was on camera, and I was just doing a good job investigating. And it showed like it looked like he had a little small cut on his thumb. And I made a video about that. And I was real careful in the video. I said, I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just putting this out there. It's informational. And then I stopped and I realized, man, I shouldn't have posted that. And I took it down. And
Yeah,
sure enough, Kelsey came back and blasted me. And that's how I ended up finding out that Mike Patty was on camera that day, because she explained to me, hey, my dad or my grandfather's on camera at work that day during the time of the crimes. And that's when I started taking this case a lot more seriously in the beginning.
me too.
But it's like, okay, when I
Well,
started seeing what some of that
that's what I meant by evolving.
so it just disheartens me.
Well, it's tough because that's what I mean by they don't care. Uh, and at the beginning, I would use things like, well, if you use statistics, you know that the family and neighbors and friends are most likely responsible for this crime. So I would say shit like that all the time. Look at these statistics. You know, it's most likely the family will be involved. And then I started realizing and covering more crime and looking at the reality of these statistics, and that's just not true. It's just not true. That's not always the case. Does it happen often? Yes.
Well, the other thing that bothers me about this crime, this is a very atypical crime. It's a crime, and when you study the FBI statistics and things, a double child homicide, first of all, in any scenario, is like a one percenter. It just almost
Hmm.
never happens.
Middle
And
of the day.
to have it happen in broad daylight is even more rare.
Very rare.
And to have a ritualistic stage scene on top of that is even more rare. So this is something that's you just don't see. And I think that's why a lot of people, myself included, were trying to see if there was an Evansdale connection, because that's another
That's what I
double
just wrote down right here on my notepad is Evansdale.
homicide. What creeps me out about that, and granted, this is just me watching too many movies too, but I posted a video about this like a year and a half, 2 years ago, about how, and we all know that like the actual dates, like 213, what like if you reverse them, it's a palindrome on the dates for each one of these crimes,
Yeah, very strange.
and mathematically that it's so. But I keep having to remind myself, like the Captain Howdy made a video about this too, about how just because we see coincidences and things, coincidences happen a lot more than we realize we do, and we're always trying to make connections to those coincidences. It's just human nature. But like you said, if Richard Allen committed this crime, there's usually some sort of escalation that leads to this brutal of a crime. The fact that it was so hands-on and personal, I just, man, I want to know where that anger, if it, whether it's Allen or anybody else, came from to be so violent with those girls. I mean, what caused that?
I think he was angry. If what the witnesses are saying is true, he was pissed off. He was going there for a purpose. And I think it has something to do with some kind of a inappropriate relationship that was going on between Richard Allen and one of those girls, or something to do with the Anthony Shots communication
The
with
more
the
time goes
nudes.
on, the more I wonder if, when they were communicating, she didn't threaten one of them like, "Hey, if you don't stop bothering me, I'm going to go to the police." I went back and I watched that video. Oh gosh, what's her name? I just made the video. That journalist that's out in Los Angeles that interviewed the one of the witnesses. Um, and we know that one of Kelsey German's friend, or I'm sorry, one of Liberty German's friends messaged this male friend like in the weeks before this happened and said, "Hey, there's this guy that's bothering me. He won't leave me alone." And she told the friend, "Hey, I took care of it." And we don't know that, the guy said, well, the person was identifying himself as a 19-year-old person. And it was right after that time that all the Anthony Shots information came out. And I almost think it's like this journalist kind of let the cat out of the bag, and they were kind of forced to release this information. Um, because it was out there in the public domain now, and they probably figured, well, we need to find out as soon as possible now that the cat's out of the bag, that they're making this documentary about this. How many people have talked and interacted with this Anthony Shots account? Um, I don't know. Do you think they should have told people about the Anthony Shot stuff sooner? Do you think that would have
No,
helped?
I think what they were doing was very strategic. I think what they did was very similar to a lot of tribal folks. They'll tie a string to a honeybee or to some type of a wasp, and that way they can track it back to the hive. Then they can steal all the honey. I think that's what they were doing with Keegan Klein. They were tying a string to his foot, and they were hoping that he was going to take them directly to this killer through. They even gave him 3 years. They said, okay, the FBI was handling this part. This is why they were so involved up until the arrest of Keegan Klein. It was their duty to conduct this investigation over state lines, and they were monitoring what he was doing online. And they may have even gotten some information around 2009, which was used in the 2019 presser. Like maybe this person was communicating with Keegan Klein. He let a few things out of the bag. I work around there, or I work in Delphi, or certain things that he did, or certain things that he knows. Like I came forward. I've spoken with police. He may have even said that to Keegan Klein. Like I talked to police,
You know,
or I work in Delphi. They're
I'd
never going to catch
like
me.
to
And then
know.
poof, he goes offline. They don't see anything. Keegan Klein moves back. Then they arrest him. And then that's why they go public with the Anthony Shot stuff, is because it's been exhausted. Now it's time for the pressure campaign on Keegan Klein. That's what I think happened.
I'm kind of surprised that there haven't been other arrests yet, even if it's only
Thank you,
for
Mandy.
um, the CSAM stuff, because I have sources that have told me that I trust pretty well that they're pretty confident they know at least one person, if not more, who are also accessing that account or some of those accounts or the Emily Ann or things like that. And we know how long it took them to arrest Klein. And that still kind of disturbs me to this day that you have this, sick CSAM individual out there committing God knows how many more crimes in the years
They were
after we
watching
already knew
him.
it was existing and going on.
They were watching him, I think.
Yeah, they were. And, just, I don't think law enforcement would get up, or Nick McClellan would get up in front of a judge and jeopardize his entire case to say there's other people or actors involved if they weren't 99.99% confident that they could show a judge some evidence of that. The big debate is, what evidence is that and how many other people?
Well, if you can prove that Richard Allen's the bridge guy, but then you have somebody's DNA that's down at the crime scene, whether that's semen,
That's what I'm starting
blood,
to think happened too.
skin.
Is there's somebody else's
Yeah.
DNA down there.
Yeah, and they can prove that he's the bridge guy, so they're charging him with kidnapping that led to the murders because that's his role.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he could have even gotten to a fight with these other folks, but I believe that there was he could have done this alone, don't get me wrong. That's very possible. I just don't think that that's what happened. I don't think that's what the facts are telling us. I believe that if there was DNA for Richard Allen, it's either that it's not enough, it's not a good enough sample, or it just simply doesn't belong to him. But if it did belong to him, they would be shouting that as loud as they were shouting about the unspent bullet. Another thing, real quick, John Walker, who is Kathy's deceased brother, Richard Allen's brother-in-law, he passed away September, I believe, in 2016, and somebody was using his Facebook account to message girls, young girls, and other women. Kathy Allen referred to this person as a monster, and she was working to get the Facebook account memorialized. So who's to say that's not Richard Allen, and who's to say that's not how he was accessing the Anthony Shots account, was with the dead man's phone?
Sure. And when I did some research the other day, it disturbs the daylights out of me when I went and I did a child predator and the sex offender registry stuff over near that area. And, I found like a dozen sex offenders within like a 5 mile range of where Richard Allen used to live. And the person on the documentary that was never aired, that uncovered there was at the time, 48-year-old man, and it wasn't Allen because the ages don't match.
No,
Um,
it's John Blaze. It's they've identified this person.
Yeah,
He
and I
lives in
identified
Delphi.
that person too and looked their criminal record up and all kinds of other things in the past.
Multiple felonies.
And it just, the real sketchy person, involved in some real sketchy things. And
I
it's
have the
just like,
photo.
man, how many people in that area that were child predators were communicating with Liberty at that time? It's at least 3 that we know of. And
Yeah,
it's like,
definitely. She
this
was
missing girl.
exposed to the social media element, and she also had something very strange on, I think it was Facebook or Instagram. It was something like waiting for Peter Pan to come through my window or something like that.
Yeah, it was
Something
the
strange.
Musically app that she was on, and that's where they uncovered the 48-year-old man that was commenting on that post she left on Musically. And it wasn't Richard Allen; it's that individual who you said they've identified that we just spoke of. That was
John Blaze is his
on.
online
He
name.
lived near the Wabash River, just like northwest of there, from what I can track, about 2 miles from the crime scene.
Yeah, very close.
I mean, who the heck knows, man? And that's somebody completely different than Richard Allen.
And also, there was a communication between Anthony Schatz that King Klein, he says other people are using the account. Investigators say the same thing. Well, somebody said to Libby, these aren't nudes. So basically, he was trying to get nudes from Libby, and they weren't sending actual nudes. They might have been like fakes, maybe
Uh-huh.
some Photoshop or just some random photos off the internet. And they may have even received money for them. So you have somebody like Keegan Klein using the Anthony Schatz account. He has no intentions of meeting these people. He's totally content. He's in fantasy land. They think he's this rich guy. That all gets crushed the moment they look at him, right? Well, you're obviously not Anthony Schatz. Who the fuck are you? So he's content with that. But if you have somebody like a Richard Allen who is now accessing these accounts, his wife is busy. Her brother just passed away. Mom is very ill. She's going into a depression. So I feel like he had a lot of time on his hands, and he was spending time in Peru. And if he's asking Abby and Libby for these photos, he's high. He could be high on drugs. Kagan talked about PCP and doing all these crazy drugs. Who knows? He wasn't under the influence. Up
We
all
know
night,
he had a
waking up in the morning, and goes and commits the murder. Pissed off out of his mind.
Yeah, and the fact that he had a hospitalization. I mean, a lot of people say he was institutionalized or went to a mental institution. I can't find documented evidence of that. There's all kinds of privacy laws, but there is a police report that shows that the cops did show up at his house at like 2 or 3 in the morning because
Mhm.
Kathy Allen was freaking out, and they took him to the hospital because he was so drunk that he just drunk enough to where she had to call the police on her own husband.
Yeah, I
So
mean it's a real event.
that's
The
obviously probably
details, though,
at bare minimum.
yeah.
So the guy's obviously got.
Lafayette, I think they drove him to. Why would they need to drive him to a whole nother town to be hospitalized? Something must have been going on more than the drinking. I think.
Yeah, you never know what's going to trigger some sort of an episode, what kind of mental things might be going on. And then you have those outside stressors that you're talking about, like, a daughter moves out and a family member dies. And,
Marriage.
he's a middle aged guy who's just, wasting his life away managing a CVS. No offense to anybody who has those types of jobs. We got to pay the
No,
bills.
those that would you're just saying his perception. That could be how he's feeling.
Sure. And that's the thing you got to do is kind of, as hard as it is, you got to try to put yourself in the shoes of these people. And you're in rural Indiana where there's just, I mean, I've been out there because I live in Illinois. It just, there's not a lot to do out there. It's boring. And you throw that into the mix and, okay, well, got to do something to pass the time. And that's what he does. That's all there is out there. There's bars. That's your social
And
interaction.
take a look at this. Kathy Allen. Remember, this is the day where he's flopping around like a fish. Remember that video? She says this: hubby and I had a great night shooting pool and spending time together at our local bar. And look at the date. This is just shortly before the murders. And one of us has finally got brave enough to sing karaoke for the first time ever and wasn't even drunk. And my husband has the moves like Jagger. So if they're not drunk, what the hell are they?
Yeah, I've sang karaoke twice in my life, and I'm not a big drinker, but I'll tell you right now, both times it was when I had a pitcher of beer in front of me. So
So they're high, I think,
it
maybe.
takes you a little bit of courage to get up in front of people if you're not used to it, even if just at a bar. So that's an interesting point.
I don't
I,
know. Could be dilated.
I'd yeah, I'd be curious to know if maybe maybe he just started getting into uh, again, this isn't an accusation. Maybe he just started getting into methamphetamines or something like that, or a new type of drug that he wasn't used to, or um, I don't know. He's definitely thinner. Then it seemed like he looked like he was in a lot better shape in some of those older Facebook pictures, and seems like he started putting on some weight after the murders and things like
Hmm.
that.
How
Uh,
much you've
you know,
changed since the crime.
yeah, you have the goatee pictures where he's more clean shaven, and then afterwards he's got that long, scruffy gray beard thing going on the bottom.
He's got something in his mouth too. Everybody thinks it's a cigarette. What if he's smoking crack or something?
Yeah, you know what's bothered me? Like the white stuff there that shows up underneath his chin on that, like, is that part of the jacket line? Like, what is that? That drives me nuts.
I don't know. What the hell's his name? Garrett Kurtz says that people in Indiana, what they would do is, I think it's like heroin or something. They would fill a bottle up with meth or something. They would fill up a bottle and put it in a bag, and then they would just kind of take hits off of this bottle.
And I don't know. Are you able to zoom out on that photo at all to like which shows his pockets? The other thing that if you look in his, he's got his right hand. It looks like it's in his jacket pocket, but all that bulging going on. I mean, obviously we know he's got a gun, but it looks like there's so much more bulging going on in that right pocket area than just a gun to
Have
me.
you ever had one of those jackets where if you put something inside your pocket that's heavy, the
Uh-huh.
outside of the pocket you can kind of pull up and the inside of your pocket is still hanging down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if that could be possible and he's just got the gun tucked up under and then whatever heavy shit he has here. But this truthfully is most likely a holster. In this image you can kind of see like a button or some shit.
That's what I thought. I think it's either a holster or a knife sheath.
Yeah, or both.
Yeah.
But I think this right here is the same image of what you're seeing right here. It's just cascading this way. I think this is the image here.
Yeah. The
This is
problem
all
with
we're looking at. The rest is
Facebook
just
is
blurred.
because of the frame rate, you'll get certain frames and pixelations bouncing around to different areas that they shouldn't be. And so it kind of distorts some things a little bit sometimes. I mean, obviously, you know what time of day it is basically because of the direction he's walking and the angle of the sun on the side of his face up there in the early afternoon, uh, from the west. And, I don't know. We can analyze it until we're blue in the face, but I'm curious to know if on the rest of that video, when he got closer, just how clear of a picture they actually got of him that we're not allowed to see yet. That could be another factor too at trial.
I have a feeling she might have pulled the phone down as he got close enough to kind of see. It almost seems like she's trying to use Abby as cover and she's filming like over her shoulder,
It still
like
blows
yeah,
me away
he's
that he didn't
coming.
try and destroy the phone or step on it or throw it in the water or anything, considering he was so hands on with the crime scene itself in the first place.
Well, the way they found it, I think it started ringing when he was down there staging the crime scene. I think that's why he put it in a shoe and then put it underneath Abby to silence it.
I mean, I would think he had to have gloves on, right? Because otherwise he'd have touch DNA of his own that they would know about already.
I don't know. He was doing something weird with the water, I think. He was
Yeah,
using that water for his
wash some stuff
benefit.
away. Or
Oh yeah.
the other thing I noticed, somebody made a video that was in the same time of year, like February, that I watched for the first time the other day, and it really intrigued me just how much of the private drive is very, very visible in that area. And if there was anybody waiting under that bridge area, it would have been very, very easy for Abby and Libby to see. Um, I'm not suggesting that somebody was down there waiting, but it actually kind of caught me off guard, even though I've seen millions of videos. I've been out in that area about this, just from their perspective at the end of that bridge, how much of the private drive you can easily see. So if there was somebody waiting down there, whether it's, to the south, to the north, they would have almost certainly been aware of that as well.
Well, let's take a look here. This is Bill from the Delphi timeline going down there, and you
If
can actually
without the
hide.
trees there,
You can
it's a
you can
whole
hide
different
under
ball
here.
with what you can see, or without the leaves. In February, you can see so much more of that drive. Even if you're standing at the end of the bridge, you could see the other side of it, on the other side of the bridge from above it. Um, I'd really like to know what made her start filming. I mean, because, I see people when I'm out walking in the woods that look suspect to me all the time, or at trails by my house. And, I'm never inclined to film them for 40 something seconds. So, I wonder if she just started filming because she thought she was meeting Anthony Schatz, and here comes some other dude that doesn't look like some 19-year-old hunk she thought that it was going to be. And maybe that's why she brought Abby with, as kind of an insurance policy.
Yeah, and they could have had an altercation over there around the bench area when you're walking from the Mears lot. He could have been right there and said something to them, and they could have exchanged words. But here is underneath the bridge where, and I think even Anthony Greeno did a video where he's like up close. You can hide right here. So you can hide under here and you can watch the people walk over you. They won't see you until you're right over the top of them. So you can get up in this little area, and it's kind of like underneath an overpass right here.
Mm-hmm.
You can crawl up and get underneath them.
Yeah,
That's how it is right here.
thought about that, because according to the timeline, like he has to be, if he's coming from the north side of that bridge to the south, after they were already on it, he's got to be hauling some ass across that bridge.
Yeah, he apparently, according to the memorandum, he spends a lot of time at those trails. There you go. So you can hide right there. Let me take this chat down.
Oh, you know what? Before I forget, you're talking about that area there. Somebody recently went out there, and they have, like, it looks like at the bottom of the hill, there's like fake turkeys and things like that. And they speculated, they're like, there's probably cameras in that. And I made a video a couple years ago saying, hey, if I were investigators, I'd start leaving some cameras out at the crime scene, and just so you can see who goes back out there, because a lot of these predators will go back to the scene of the crime. And maybe that raised a red flag for them. Maybe they saw Alan's tags come out there and said, maybe we should look up this guy. Maybe it was that simple.
Well, Hoosier Cold Cases, the captain, and Anthony Greeno went and did a video. They all walked out to the crime scene, and while they were out there, they noticed a bunch of trees were cut down, and they actually found a deer camera that had been smashed, kind of buried a little bit, and it had the SD card taken out of the back.
Yeah, these were like
right at the crime scene
that were down at the bottom of the hill. They were like just fake turkeys down at the bottom of the hill that this person filmed. And I was like, man, there's probably cameras in there. So I don't know. Maybe they gathered some evidence from actually putting cameras out there and just kind of seeing over the years who was coming back to the crime scene, and just kind of vetted a bunch of them.
That's interesting, because if Richard Allen is somebody that comes and goes to those trails, it's likely that, yeah, one day when nobody was out there, instead of taking the bridge, he just took a quick left down that trail straight to the crime scene.
Yeah, and
good point.
I think investigators probably had some eyes on that area for a while with cameras, and people don't realize it. I think they know who was going back out there. Just think about it. All it would take is just that one time him going out there and them identifying who it is and looking into that person, and all of a sudden, they go and put that name in the old tip narrative, and then Doolin's old tip pops up. Maybe it's that simple. I mean, who knows? It could be anything, obviously, but we're just speculating. But that's one of the possibilities nobody's ever really talked about, is maybe they have him on camera coming back to the crime scene area, and that kind of raised a red flag to them.
Yeah, it could be. And I think that's what they were hoping with Caden Klein, is something like that, some kind of a slip up.
Mm-hmm.
They're hoping the killer would do something similar online.
But yeah, it's just, boy, I hope that if they're convinced that somebody else was involved, and I lived in that town, it would bug the crap out of me every single day that person isn't in custody yet, that there's still potentially somebody else out there.
Yeah, I mean, this guy worked at CVS. If he's guilty, I mean, these folks were looking for a murderer while they were interacting with the murderer.
Like, I'd want to know, if I lived in Delphi, is there still another sick predator who was involved in this crime out there on our streets? I'm actually surprised that they don't raise more heck about that to investigators and police and prosecutors wanting some answers for that. Now, obviously, there's probably a bunch they can't reveal, but it really bothers me that at the beginning of this case, I go back and I'm really supportive of law enforcement in general. Yeah, they've made mistakes, but early on, Tobe Lesenby said that he wasn't too concerned about there potentially still being somebody out there. And even Kelsey said at one point, if it's who we think it is, then no, we're not real concerned about it. It makes me
Something
wonder
about her boyfriend or
why
something
did
would
they
could
think that
beat him
nobody
up.
was in danger for so long when they clearly still were.
I'm just hoping that they know a whole lot more, and eventually we'll be able to understand it when they
Man, I
release
hope
that
so.
information. They have to, because if they don't, then that makes you question everything that they do have.
Yeah, and just circling back to that unspent round, like like you said, even if he was out there in the woods hunting every single day, the likelihood of one of his unspent rounds being within feet from the girls' dead bodies on a property of that size is just so ridiculously unlikely that I wish people would get that scenario out of their heads. It just doesn't make any sense for people to continue to think that the only way somebody could plant that bullet out there is if somebody broke into Richard Allen's home, cycled around, threw his weapon without him knowing, put the weapon back in his house, went out to the crime scene, and either held on to that unspent round until they killed the girls, then dropped it. I mean, it's just so nonsensical. And
Yeah, he would have to be like protecting somebody that's within his home
yeah,
that
and
he
I mean,
knows was out
obviously
there.
that sort of thing could happen, but it's just
But he's the guy that looks like the bridge guy. So if it's somebody in his home that took his weapon, they have to look a lot like him.
yeah, and that would be the other thing. There'd have to be somebody else out there that day wearing the exact same clothing as him too. On top of it, it's like, how do you know what he was going to wear that day? To frame him. And people try and counter to me all the time. Oh, well, there's lots of people that wear dark blue jackets and blue jeans, and
I mean, it's true,
it's true, but it's like
but they're
that's
not
an
short as
addition to
shit,
all
and
the
they don't
who
have his gait, and
on
they
top.
don't. Witnesses said this guy was 5'6", right? That's what they said, 5'6", 5'8". That's what Richard Allen is.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just want to see justice for these two little girls. It's like I first started covering this case when I was sitting there with what I think was a case of COVID in February of 2020 before almost anybody else had it. And I was just on the couch with a fever laying there, and this case caught my eye. And it's everybody's worst nightmare. It's the boogeyman on the bridge that you can't identify. It's like the Halloween movie. You see the guy, but he's got the mask on. You don't know who he is.
Yeah, and he only strikes when the parents aren't around.
Yeah, and I
The
think that's
moment you let him
part
out
of
of your sight, he
what's
strikes.
fascinating about
Boom.
this case is there is information there is evidence, there is video, yet right there in front of you, and you still can't identify who it is. And I give credit to law enforcement for not giving up on this, because the odds of a cold case being solved so far after the fact are only like 5-10%, maybe that late in the game. It
Yeah,
doesn't
they
happen.
didn't do bad. It's not bad. I mean, we could be having this conversation. We could have been having this conversation 10 years down the road.
And I just hope that Nick McClelland, I think this is his first murder trial, correct?
Correct.
Knows what he's doing, because you only get one chance at this. And boy, you're going up. Even though we all think that the Odinist theory is probably crazy, you're
Could be
going up
true.
against more experienced trial lawyers, I think, here, and they'll use every dirty trick in the book, as we've already seen, to try
Yeah,
and get.
they need the Odinism story to be a little bit bigger than the Richard Allen story, and then they're good.
Yeah, especially with the things that people believe nowadays, and they'll believe anything. And what bothers me, it's like, man, just from a common sense standpoint, okay, and I've said this before already, if you're part of an Odinistic cult, are you going to sacrifice girls in broad daylight when it's cold, and maybe force them through a creek perhaps, and nobody's going to see a single one of these people that are out there committing this ritualistic crime?
Well, it could have been numerology could have played a part. And one thing that did stand out to me, I've spoken to a few different experts in Norse paganism, and what they've told me that when it comes to Odin, there is a story of somebody crossing a bridge, making their way through freezing cold water, and then hanging upside down from a tree.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I did that weird video, and I don't usually do videos like this where I did that tarot card stuff.
Hmm.
And in one of the tarot cards, you have the girl with like one leg folded under the other, like one of the girls supposedly did in the crime scene photos.
And that's happened before with the Manson killings.
Yeah, and it's like the number. I don't know, like the numbers coincide too, and
213.
like you've got like the tree of knowledge where like the girl's arm
Hmm.
is up, like when they say, oh, the Libby's arm was up facing the tree. But I only made that video to kind of show that, like, if you're looking for confirmation bias or coincidences,
It's there.
they're pretty easy to find and make up
Yes.
yourself too.
It doesn't mean that it's not right. It just means that you don't have any proof. You just have
Yeah,
confirmation bias. It doesn't mean throw it away. It just means look at it critically. That's all.
and that's what upsets me about the defense Odinism theory right now. It's like, okay, fine, you want to have this theory, that's great. Your client's entitled to that, but to just throw people's names out there in documents without any kind of evidence in that document, in a document of that size,
We did it with Richard Allen.
yeah,
That's
it,
their point.
it's
They
we're,
said if
we're
you can do it with my client, we can do it with these folks. But that's just it's comparing apples and oranges.
but I think when they get to trial, they're going to have a real big problem, because if you're going to throw that theory out there to as your defense, you're going to need more than just, okay, well, somebody interviewed this person and they were talking about this on their Facebook page, or this person who has the mental capacity of a child confessed to this crime. um, you got to start putting people at the scene. You got to start showing some sort of evidence that your theory is more plausible than the actual physical evidence that they have against Allen at the crime scene and the eyewitnesses. And I don't see how they're going to be able to do that unless they have
Well,
something.
I have another theory on that. I have a feeling that they're just trying to put together a solid case
Mhm.
that is enough for the prosecution to look at it as a formidable case, right? And then that gives the defense more of a bargaining chip when it comes down to deal time. Like either you give us a decent deal, or we're going to continue on with this great defense that that's already proving successful.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever a chance that Allen plea bargains or confesses to this crime?
I think he's
Other
already
than
decided to.
other than what we know that he allegedly has to his wife.
No,
I
I think his wife helped him cover it up. I'm not here to accuse her or say that. It's just my opinion. But
I've thought about that.
We have Libby's mom saying, after we saw these photos and we heard this voice, there was no way we didn't expect this to be solved right away. Same thing that I've said. Everybody that's touched this case from a professional standpoint thought this case was going to be solved right away. But the reason it wasn't, because the people that they expected to come forward did not.
I wonder if they found any sort of evidence that Kathy Allen actually knew about this.
I think
I
she
mean,
helped him cover it up. I think she's probably the main reason that he got away with it. And
remember
I
that whole
apologize if I'm wrong, but it's the only explanation for why this guy who was working at the CVS, playing pool at JC's, and just living right amongst everybody, there's only one reason that he wasn't turned in. That's because somebody did not turn him in. And also, they helped him cover up the crime and probably gave him some advice like, yo, if those girls seen you, you need to come forward and tell them that you saw those girls also, or you're going to prison, and that's going to be enough for them to search you right now.
I'll bet he was shitting his pants when he saw himself allegedly in a photograph or a video after the fact.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, can you imagine just sitting there and living for like 4, 5, 6 years, knowing that they've got you on camera, that they could be closing in on you at any day, any time? And we know that Richard Allen's freak out for the alcohol stuff where he was taken to the hospital was after the crime.
Maybe he had another freak out. All I know is he has zero remorse, because if he had any remorse, the moment they found him, he would have been like, you got me. It's finally over. I can breathe now. But nope, he didn't give a shit. He's been trying to figure out what his next move will be once they do catch him.
Yeah, he's just trying to create as much chaos as he can right now, I think, while he's in there like a worm wiggling on a hook.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
doing a
that's how
pretty
I see
good job. I feel like the fish can't quite. I feel like they can't set the hook quite yet.
it. Yeah. So again, just I feel so bad for the family member, the victims' families, because you know when I was a teenager, when I was 15 years old, I went out with my brother and his best friend. We just moved to a new town. We had a wonderful day. We went fishing on a chartered fishing boat up in Wisconsin.
Sounds
And for
awesome.
whatever reason, my brother and his friend decided to go across Interstate 94. It was back then a 2-lane highway instead of like a huge highway. And my brother's friend got hit and killed by a car.
Jesus, sorry.
And I was there that night. I went under the bridge. I begged them. I said, don't go over that. It's dangerous. They didn't listen. They were teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I mentioned that, it's like I know what it's like to be around a teenager who loses their life. That, granted, it was a real close family friend, and I was there that night. But then, you know, even when I was in school, there were people who were like trying to say, well, your brother pushed him or did that, and, you know, trying to just make things up that weren't true. And having to see a family member go through that, this is the reason I tell this story. I can't imagine Kelsey German and her family and them having to go through being re-victimized over and over and over by people who accuse them of this crime or involvement of this crime without a speck of evidence for like 5 years, on top of losing your sister and her best friend this way. It's like, what the hell is wrong with people? I don't understand. And so if any of you out there that are watching today and you just want to blindly accuse family members of things, please do your homework in this case. You're
And
entitled
don't quote statistics. We all know that a lot of these types of crimes, family members are involved. But the truth is, those types of crimes happen within the same home. You know, they don't happen out in public
in
like
this
this.
instance, most of the family members, based on what we can research and know, have pretty solid alibis. Now, there may be a few loose ends here or there that we don't know about, but in general, we know where Kelsey was. We know where Mike Patty was. We know where the grandmother was. Derek German was out there coming to pick them up after the fact. So I just don't get where it comes from. I really
Well,
don't.
also another thing people need to remember, one thing that I've learned personally covering true crime is that um, the people who are suspicious to me are the ones who don't look guilty. I mean, you should be acting weird as shit. Your family member just died. You should not be acting innocent at all. You should be acting strange, guilty, like something is bothering you. So now when I see that, it's nothing to me. I say, well, you should be acting very strange because now I know that that is normal. So when they talk about Kelsey, oh, look how she's laughing. Look how she's talking. She's listening to heathens. What's going on with the coats? Why is she obsessed with the coats? It's like that shit is just, it's really strange. And if you got to evolve out of that, if you guys are going to be looking into true crime, you cannot be accusing family members just because you read a statistic that most family members are
And
responsible for these types of crimes because it's not
everybody
true.
reacts to stressful situations until you're in those people's shoes. It's like the story I just told you. Like, my brother's friend died. I just kind of internalized it. I was just quiet. I didn't want to talk about it. I kind of accepted there wasn't a way I could change any of it. It was done. And whereas my brother, he got into some difficult things. He turned to drugs a little bit, and
Yeah, the pain.
yeah,
You got to hide that pain.
and you just never know how people are going to react to it. And thankfully, my brother's older now. He's still here. He's worked through that phase of his life.
Good.
But the point being, like you said, you just never know how somebody's really going to react to that, and everybody's different. And so everybody
It's
wants to
normal
be
to be strange in
amateur
those
outline
moments.
detective or sleuth, but you can really do a lot of damage if you just make assumptions based on people's behavior after the fact for a crime. That laughter people see, Kelsey's laughing, she's there, she's nervous, she's never been in an interview situation with James Renner. She's trying to just be polite to him, be friendly to him,
Live in the moment.
yeah, and probably is nervous, and it's
Yeah, and
probably
if she
nervous
was
to have.
acting normal, I would be more suspicious now. But she's not. She's acting very awkward. And I mean, that's how you're supposed to be.
So again, it's just as long as we get justice for the families, that's all that matters. And I've been watching your channel for a while, and I appreciate you giving me the time on here. I'll let you go soon, but
Yeah, anytime.
your channel has come a long way. I wish I had the time to put into my channel that you put into your channel, with the editing and with the live streams and stuff like that. Just so much other stuff I have going on all the time, and my goal one day is to do that too. But you know it's neat to see how you've really jumped headfirst into this compared to where you're making videos a little more sporadically before. And it seems like you got a real nice following and are trying to shine a lot of light on a lot of different cases, and you're getting a good following doing that. So hats off to you,
Thank
because
you.
um, you know, any publicity these families and these victims can get to this day, I'm sure they're grateful for, especially when you try to keep it pretty professional the way you do on your channel. So, just from me to you, keep up the good work there.
Thank
I
you.
know people appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. So I'll take off now and let you resume your show. But thanks for the dialogue. I think we talked about some pretty interesting things here for a while to get you started here. I know you said you had like 3
Well,
hours.
let me ask you a couple questions
Yeah,
before
sure.
you
Go ahead.
leave. What do you think? What do you think about the Wabash River? I'm going to give them all to you, so you can just kind of shoot them off. And then also Richard Allen working at CVS, possibly having access to the Weber's information, knowing that they were snowbirds and they would not be receiving maybe their prescription, or just through small talk, they knew that they would not be home.
The channels that I've had and the people that I trust have told me that Wabash River search was connected to the Delphi case somehow. But at the same time, these are third-party sources. And even though they're sources that have been accurate with me before, I don't know, I just can't see, what did they spend, like 6 weeks? You don't have a training exercise that lasts 6 weeks.
Right.
That's
And
not
Keegan Klein also, the day they took him over to Grissom Air Force Base was the same
exactly.
day it started.
And
And then 2 weeks after it finished, they have their suspect in custody.
his jailmate, and I think Klein had a cover story, and one of my sources messaged me, and I actually can't talk about it. There's people get mad at me when I do this. There are things that I've been told that I don't think the public should know yet, and that I've been asked by these sources to not share publicly.
That's
And
good
so
that you don't.
and so I have to be very, very careful. Um, it's very possible that Klein gave his jailmate a cover story. I was told by Klein's jailmate that he told him that he was going to Grissom Air Force Base for a medical procedure.
Mm-hmm.
That very well could have just been a BS cover story. And I've been told by multiple people that they were basically offering Klein some things potentially to try and flip on some people or person. And beyond that, I'm not really comfortable saying more. The problem is, even if you have him flipping on somebody or saying this, you also have to be able to prove it in a court of law.
Yeah,
Especially
his character is under question. He's got
credibility being
characterable. Yeah,
destroyed.
he's a questionable witness. So he needs to, if he's going to tell him anything, he needs to have something to back it up.
What was the question you just asked then again after the Wabash one? The second one?
The CVS. This was actually one of my members asked me this question, and during our discussion, it came to my mind. I wanted to ask you, Richard Allen working at the CVS. Do you think that gives him access to information like the Webers being snowbirds, and knowing that if he wanted to plan a murder, he could do it right there on their property if he wanted to?
In a town that small, there's probably all kinds of things that you can find out about what's going on in your community. I've often theorized that there's also a potential possibility that the reason somebody knew the girls were out at the bridge that day is because they were out in a softball field or in a park, or said, "Hey, on our day off, do you want to go out there?" I mean,
They were at Riley Park the day before, and that's
just never
right up
know
the
what
street
somebody
from
might
Richard Allen.
overheard casually. And in a town that small, you don't know who knows who. And Allen, if you live in a town long enough, you're going to kind of know some people's habits potentially. Other people might know those habits. I mean, it may not have been even Richard Allen who knew that they weren't going to be there that day. It could be somebody else that Allen knew that was involved in the crime that told him they're out of town this time of year all the time. Maybe that's what gave him the confidence to commit the crime in that area in broad daylight. Because and this is a great point, and I'm glad you brought this up, because especially in broad daylight, man, with no leaves on the trees. You could kind of see the property from the end of the bridge from there through the trees on there when there's no leaves on the Weber property.
Hmm.
Um, you would have to be a crazy person to intentionally commit a crime right there, unless you were certain that nobody was at the property that day.
Or you're just motivated.
Yeah,
You're
or you're just
pissed.
motivated and real gutsy.
He could have just been pissed. I mean, I've done some really stupid shit when I was really mad. Like speeding down the highway all mad and shit, when you could have probably killed yourself or somebody else.
Yeah, but for me, it's just a real difficult leap to go from being real pissed to a double homicide and staging bodies. I I think that, and especially if they found any sort of forensic evidence. Granted, I've only seen the captain's video about it too. I haven't heard it elsewhere either. But if they found the girl's blood, DNA, or anything from anything related to the crime or to the girls in that garage or on that property, that would have
That's it.
mean that would tell investigators that that person was probably pretty confident that they knew that person wasn't there. And that's a huge clue if that's the case. If they did find something on that property and that rumor is true, then they know that that person knew that they knew that the Webbers weren't going to be there.
Yeah. It's like he knew that. And maybe he just knew that. He's lived there in town for 5 years. He frequents those trails. Maybe he's played pool with Brad Weber. We know Brad was a pool player. Maybe he said, yeah, my parents, they're never there. They're gone.
Well, it seems like everybody
During
in
some
that town is
casual
a
conversation.
butterfly. Like everybody's at the bars, everybody's gossiping in the stores, and
Maybe that's why he planned the murder there. I feel like it was premeditated. So if he was targeting them, I think that the Monon High Bridge was the first part of his plan. That was the first step, was finding that location. And that could have been one of the reasons that he picked that location, was because he knew that the Webbers were snowbirds and that Brad wouldn't be home until 4 o'clock. We also know that's when he left the crime scene.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just one of those things where the timing has to be just right for this crime too. If it's premeditated, you have to know the girls are going to be there. You have to hope that nothing goes wrong. You have to hope nobody sees you or gets you on camera.
Have a damn good reason to do it in the first place.
And when I emailed Dr. Kathleen Ramsland, the forensic psychologist, I asked her, I said, what does it say about a killer when they commit a crime like this in broad daylight? And the first thing she said to me was, it's strongly suggestive of it being premeditated. Because typically anybody who's going to commit a crime like this in broad daylight is extremely much more afraid that they're going to get caught. And so there's a need almost for premeditation.
The time too, we had Valentine's Day following. If the girls were threatening the killer, like, hey, we're going to tell on you, I'm going to expose you for what you've done, we know who you are, he could be working on a time, with a time crunch. So he knows if he doesn't take advantage of this, he may never have the chance again.
I tend to think that that's a motive for this crime, and why it was so violent is because I think that these girls were threatening to expose them or expose this ring. And when he gets them face to face, maybe they're defiant. I mean, who knows? And he's pissed off. He's like, hey, you could have sent me to jail for the rest of my life, or you could have exposed me.
Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. I need to protect my relationship with my wife. That's why it's so important to me that I have to go and do this now.
Yeah. And if there were other people involved, or whether it's the clients or anybody else, maybe their whole ring was threatened to be exposed. And maybe that's why they think that there's other people that help, because they have evidence. Hey, we need to shut these girls. Maybe the people involved in this said, we need to shut these girls up before we're all exposed. That's as good of a theory as anybody has, really. But again, the violent nature of this crime suggests there's some sort of resentment or hostility or anger. And it really bothers me that in the FBI affidavit that they said that there was no struggle.
Because that pisses me off.
Struggle in a hands-on crime like that, it strongly suggests to me that these girls didn't have a way of fighting back. And like, were they tied up? Were they taken somewhere and tied up? Were they handcuffed? So, and that's an FBI sworn affidavit. Granted, they stretched the truth a little bit, as we know.
Well, they said they got dropped off at 1 o'clock too. So to me, that tells me they didn't even have the Hoosier Harvest Store video yet.
Yeah, it seems like the. Oh, you know what? My phone's ringing, and this may be my car dealership. In fact, it is. Can you hang on for 1 second?
Sure.
Thank you. Hello. Hey, hang in there. What's going on, sir?
All right. So we'll wait for the Unsolved to get done with that call. We'll take a quick break too when he comes back and grab some water, go to the restroom, whatever you guys want to do, and then we'll come back. Shane says exactly, Sleuth. There is DNA. I bet it's unknown. Well, that'd be a good reason to assume others are involved. If you know Richard Allen's the kidnapper, right? He's involved in the crime. We're going to charge him with kidnapping that led to the girl's murders. We know you're the killer. We know others are involved because this DNA that we know is part of the crime does not match Richard Allen. So now you're going to have the defense say, well, if it doesn't match Richard Allen, that just shows that he's an innocent person. But I think in court, with the bullet, with the witnesses saying that the guy that they saw was the person on Libby's video, and with Richard Allen saying that he saw them, they saw him, that's pretty much him telling on himself. So him coming forward did buy him 6 months, but eventually it's going to be the reason that he gets convicted, in my opinion. If it gets there, I have a feeling he's just going to plead out. Lynn, the biggest CSAM in Indiana history. Chris Owens, I wonder if Richard Allen could also be responsible for the 2012 Evansdale case. Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning of the stream. If they convict him and they can prove that he committed this murders, definitely looking at Evansdale and Jordan Sofer. Yeah, I agree, Stephanie. Yep, that Blaze gentleman talking to 13 and 14-year-old girls. The Unsolved's back. Hold on. Welcome
Okay,
back,
sorry about
sir.
that.
No worries.
Apparently, if you put an aftermarket air filter in your car, it can trigger a code and cost you $165, and then you have to put a General Motors one in instead and pay for the diagnostic fee. I guess it could be worse, $160 something for a car repair.
Yeah, just go open your window and start throwing the money out there.
Right?
Just grab a handful and throw it out there.
So I guess
That ought
it's
to handle it.
better than what the news could have been so far. So
Yeah, it's true.
but yeah, who knows what Allen overhears in that CVS pharmacy, man, or what he has access to, or information, or what somebody's in there buying, and he overhears. Just it's the perfect type of place to overhear a lot of things in a small town. Who knows? But I really, the more I think about it, I really tend to think that these girls were about to expose who the Anthony Shots account really was, or some other accounts, or may have made a threat toward them about that, that really scared the daylights out of these people. And they figured, okay, we got to eliminate this person or people, unfortunately, before we're exposed and go to jail for 20, 30, 40 years like Keegan Klein has.
Yeah, because think about it. He would have been in so much trouble if he got busted. He would have been in prison either way, maybe for the rest of his life, even.
Well, the other thing that sketches me out is the timing of his searches. When he went to Vegas, immediately they bail for Vegas. He's searching Sandy Hook bodies, and he's searching how long does DNA last. That's not normal, dude.
Not at all.
That's not normal. But
using burner phones and shit.
Especially when you're on vacation in Las Vegas. Who the hell's searching for that shit?
Yeah, you're supposed to be having fun, trying to pick up chicks and
it's
throw your
so
money away.
It really is. And I don't know, man. Like, I've been told that they have evidence that they know other people who were using those accounts that they could probably have in jail already. And
well, Keegan's admitted it after his conviction. He told in an interview with the Murder Sheet that he knows other people were using it, and he also knows that they were trying to meet other people
And I
right
know the
up until the
investigators.
murders, like a month or two ahead
And
before
it's
that.
like I don't want to tell investigators how to do their job, but at this point in the game, if you know that somebody's not going to flip on somebody, but you have them on CSAM related to this, go throw them in jail just like Keegan for 40 years. Enough is enough. Don't let these people walk free anymore.
I agree.
It's been too long. People involved in this, whether it was catfishing these girls or other girls, they shouldn't be walking the streets after 5-6 years, even if you're still trying to gather information. Let them think about that in a jail cell for a while.
I agree.
So anyway, I don't know if you have any other questions. I'd be happy to try and tell you what I think about that. Otherwise, I'll be happy to let you go on with your live stream.
All right, that's all I had for you, Unsolved. I really appreciate you calling in, man.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm glad this
Great
time out
call.
stream I was able to be a little more calm than some of the topics we talked about in the past.
Well, I mean, it's getting ugly out there. We just got to ignore it. We don't drive down the street and jump out of the car and go yell at the crackheads down the alley like, what you're doing is wrong. You clean your act up. You just look at them, say, oh God, I hope you guys figure it out. And then you drive on. So that's how I got to start looking at some of these YouTubers who are family blaming and coming up all these crazy conspiracies without any solid evidence. I'm just looking
Yeah,
at them like crackheads in the alley, and I'm just
I started
going on with
clicking
my
the block
business.
button a lot more than I used to, and just it's either behave like an adult. You're entitled to your opinions, but either behave like an adult or just leave. There's plenty of other three ring circus channels people can go do that on.
I agree.
All right, take care, man. Thanks for having me on
All right.
today.
Thanks again, Unsolved. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Okay. All right. We have another caller, Miss Dog Lover. Before I pull you on, I'm going to take a quick break. I got to grab a water and take a quick bathroom break, and we'll be right back. So, Miss Dog Lover, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. 5 minutes. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Miss Dog Lover, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Welcome on. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I was just listening, and I think what really resonates with me is the whole victim blaming thing. Um, because from personal experience, you go through something so horrific, you know, everyone has a different reaction. Like when I lost my brother, it was absolutely horrendous. And
Sorry
it
to
was
hear
like
that.
a manslaughter thing. It was like in 2009, and I've been very open and honest about it. But at the time, people were saying they were quite shocked by how I was able to just carry on, and I didn't seem like um, there was anything really wrong with me. But I was just in such massive shock. You kind of just go onto autopilot. I can't describe it any other way. And I was talking to Molly in the chat, and it's just survival mode, really. And I think anyone that starts blaming victims, they've just got no idea, really, what it's like to try and just survive something like that.
And I don't understand where it comes from. I mean, are they really do you think they really believe that the family had something to do with it and that they're having trouble coming to terms with that, or are they just so easy just to throw that out there with no care in the world about the repercussions or how it might make these victims feel?
I don't know. I don't know what goes on in people's heads, really. Um, I like to think the best of people, but sometimes, like, it's just people are being toxic, and um, it's upsetting for someone that's actually been through something like that. I mean, it's a different experience to the families losing those two girls, because that was just such a horrendous incident. And it's different, but when you lose someone, it's so painful, and you need people to be supportive.
I just don't understand how. I mean, I understand talking about it behind closed doors, like, what if, some of these things are very strange, and then leave it at that. Like, yeah, it's just a private conversation. You may have mentioned the family members, but going out there and thinking it's a real theory that Kelsey and Mike Patty and all these people had something to do with it. And a lot of people that were accusing Kelsey and everybody are the same folks who are pushing the Odinism thing and saying that Richard Allen is innocent. So why is it that Kelsey is guilty, but Richard Allen's not?
It's totally ridiculous. It's like sensationalism, isn't it? I mean, these people say these things on anonymous chats on social media, but they wouldn't say it to you face to face, would they? They wouldn't dare do it.
No.
That's the problem with social media these days. And I think people need to just stop and think before they actually make comments like that, because I don't know, I'm a big believer in karma. You don't know what's around the corner, you don't know what's going to happen to you, and you will want people to be kind to you when the worst happens to you in life. Just
Yeah,
be good,
when you're
be
down and
nice.
out, you're gonna want somebody to help pick you up.
Yeah,
And that's why I try to be helpful whenever I'm out in public and I see somebody struggling. I mean, I'll sit there and I'll sit back and I'll watch 10, 15 people just waiting for a tragedy to happen. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to step forward, and if I see I could help, I'm going to do it and try to prevent something bad from happening if I can.
yeah, exactly, because you're a good person. And I think, there are good people in this world, there are bad people in this world, there are people in between. And I think everyone should aspire to be a good person and help each other out, because you never know when you're going to need someone to help you.
Yeah, and I mean, I was invincible my entire life until I hit 40, and then I just started running into all these problems. I'm so grateful that my wife was there, to kind of be there while I'm dealing with it. So I could see how some folks who are going through some real problems like cancer and life threatening issues and loss of family members, real problems, if they don't have anybody, I mean, that must be awful. I mean, the quality of life must be non existent.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes me sad, you know, really does. And like 14 years later, I'm still really so grieving him. I will miss him for the rest of my life. And can you imagine um what the families have gone through and what they will go through for the rest of their life, because what happened to those girls was so brutal and they were
Yeah, it's
so
not like
young.
they died in a car accident or
No,
some horrible illness came and took their life. No, we had somebody that brutally terrorized these girls. There's
they
nothing
were
that will ever
children.
change that.
They were innocent children.
That fear that they felt has scarred that entire area, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh. But that's all I was calling in about. Yeah, it just really resonated with me. Don't blame the families. Don't blame the victims. It's like, I don't want to get into it, but the whole Madeleine McCann thing, like everyone has always blamed the parents, and I just think so easy to do that, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
it's right there
you
on the
don't know. You
surface,
don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You're not police officers. You're not detectives.
And
Just
coincidences do happen.
yeah, exactly. But thanks for having me on.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, and take care, and I'll call in soon again.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Dog Lover.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thank you too. Bye bye.
Bye. Wow, some good calls today. I think we'll hang out for another 15 minutes just to kind of see what you guys feel about some of the stuff that was talked about with these calls, some of the things that we went over today. That's a good point, Farmer. If there are deer cameras out there, deer stands, what were they capturing in 2015 and 2016? Who else did they go back and look at their footage from the deer cam to see who might have been coming and going prior to the murders? Yeah, there's a lot of hunting back there. Sensei, question. What is the local etiquette for bridge crossing? I wouldn't want to pass somebody on a bridge like that. I would wait for someone to get to the other side. The fact he didn't record. Well, somebody brought up a good point also that he could have been maybe scoping out the Weber residence. So I'm not quite sure. Because and I know we're getting sick of the rumors, but there was some rumors about Richard Allen's neighbor right around the time he got arrested that he had stolen some property from somebody. So I don't know if that's a bad habit of his. I don't think so, but I thought it was an interesting question. Kind of goes to the motive. Did the girls see him doing something, catch him? Yeah, so CJK, they found a smashed camera just on the south end. And then the captain and Hoosier Cold Cases in Greeno, they were doing a video together. And they went down to the crime scene. And while they went down there was all these trees, small trees that were cut. So I'm assuming that law enforcement cut those trees, or whoever put the deer camera there cut those trees so they could see whatever it was in front of the camera. But when they went down there, sure enough, it was kind of buried a little bit. There's a few rocks over the top of it. They yanked it out of the ground and they checked the back for the SD card and it was gone. And the front was kind of smashed in, but it was right smack dab in the center of the crime scene. So I don't know if maybe a local person went out there and was trying to catch the killer. Not exactly sure. Hey, there's good to see you. My Jeep finally got towed this morning. We sat waiting for a tow in Delphi last night for 7 hours. Damn. We got scammed. I did get our money back though, and we got it towed this morning. Sorry to hear that. Those are the things that bad days are made of. Shit like that. ATVs, canoes, and PT cruisers. I guess another question is, could Richard Allen have just been pissed off about something else and just took it out on the girls that day? Maybe he wasn't motivated, but extremely mad. Maybe drunk or high. I don't know too much about that, Molly. Looks like we have somebody calling in. Oh, he bounced. I guess not. Who hunts with that type of gun? Yeah, he's not hunting down there. I don't think Richard Allen was much of a hunter. But he does seem like the type of guy that would go ahead and take that trail that goes down from the north side of the bridge. I think Gray Hughes did a video about it, a really good one, actually. So he walks up to the north end of the bridge. Instead of crossing the bridge, he just takes a quick, sharp left. And we've seen Randy take that path a few times, but Gray goes all the way down and he has some kind of a stabilizing camera. It's really good, 360 view. And I have a feeling that Richard Allen took that path quite often. You know, that could have even been his intentions from the beginning if it was premeditated, was to take them left. So maybe he was waiting for them to come back, then he would attack them and bring them left. But at this point, they're taking forever on the bridge, and he's just going to force them across the creek into the location that he's pre-selected. All right, let me zip down here. I will go to CJK. Rumor has it Allen was interested in ordnance. Says who? And we know books were removed. We don't know that books were moved. We know that there was something that resembles small booklets, according to the neighbor, and haphazardly try to put sticks on them to mimic what he saw in the books. Could be, but first you'd have to show that those books were on Odinism or paganism or whatever, which we don't know. And according to Richard Allen's defense team, there was nothing found during that search that would indicate he was into that. But he did have 6 years to hide any of that. So even if all the Odinism stuff is accurate and is real, which it could be, that doesn't exclude Richard Allen from it, right? They're still pretty sure that he's the bridge guy and the person who kidnapped. So if there is some kind of weird ritual going on, that means that he could have very well have taken part in it. I think so too, CJK. Cindy says Sleuth agree about KA. Gave her grace at first. Yeah, it's just really hard. When you see the pain on Carrie's face and she's like, I just don't understand it. We had these images of the guy. FBI thinks he's local. We have his voice. She was just so confused by it. You could just see how confused. And it was right then and there I said, what's causing that is somebody extremely close to Richard Allen who did not come forward and may have even helped him cover up these crimes. No predictions, Digital. Gail McCauley, Libby or Abby had known the murderer, they surely would said their name, so we would know because she was videotaping. I don't think that's necessary. Why would she say Richard? Why would she say that? If they both knew him, there's no reason for them to say his name. And even if they did know him, he appears to be wearing a disguise. Maybe that's part of the reason why they panicked. Maybe they didn't know who Richard Allen was, and they were expecting some young Anthony Schatz person. Maybe they weren't expecting anybody. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. I think that was a good little live stream. 2 great calls. I'm going to grab a bite to eat. And I'll see you guys later. Shout out to Mandy for the super sticker. Thank you, Mandy. Farmer, another super sticker. You guys rock. Miss Dog Lover, when my brother was killed, people said I seemed surprisingly okay to talk to. I was in massive shock for months. It was not okay. And it's still not okay. Gilded Crux, thank you so much. All right, guys, you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you members in the Discord, and we should be going live tomorrow around 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for members only. So keep a lookout for that notification. Everybody take care. Justice for Abby and Libby. See you guys soon.